Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Glad to see you. Glad you're here spending time with us. We appreciate it. We've got a lot of movie stuff to talk about, and you can't think about the entertainment industry. You can't think about anything right now without thinking about the impact that the coronavirus has on the industry. Thomas Manning here to join me. Thomas, good to see you, man. Glad
Thanks.
you're here. We've got Groot back there on the Tim Cam. Groot, are you back there? Is that Groot? There's Groot. Yeah, Groot and the intern. Yes, that's Greg Tillman. Greg is still the invisibility formula stuff. Oh, look, the invisibility formula went off. He's visible now, but I think his vocals are still messed up. So that's why I decided to sit in for Tim back there on the Tim Cam. So good to see you, Greg. Glad you're back. Yeah. Last week was kind of odd with you here but not here, which really isn't any different than normally.
Basically, yeah.
Well, wait, there are a couple films that we're going to review, Thomas, that we got a chance to check out. The first one is Bloodshot. This is the new Vin Diesel film based on a comic book. He's a superhero, but as a kind of an anti-hero. He's created. He didn't get bitten by a spider. He basically had to die to become a Lazarus kind of hero. So Vin Diesel is in this film. We're also going to review The Hunt, but we'll start with Bloodshot. You and I got a chance to check out this film, and I think the casting was pretty solid. And this Guy Pearce is also in this movie. Lamorne Morris plays this tech genius, and you and I both thought he was the best thing about this movie, his comic relief. He was also in Game Night, and he's been in a few other things as well, but I just loved him. I wanted to see more of him on the screen. Give us the story behind Bloodshot.
Yes, so you have Vin Diesel's character, and he's kind of like a Navy SEAL commander type hero, and then suddenly you find that he's kind of it's called a time loop, it feels like, but he doesn't know he is. He just knows that he wakes up with a new memory every time, but he doesn't know it's a new memory.
Right.
For
and
him,
he dies in action.
Yeah. For him, that's the only reality he knows, and somebody's manipulating him, and he has a new target set that he has to attack each and every time that he kind of resets. And so it kind of gives you vibes of Memento from Christopher Nolan, this guy who has little pieces of the past that he has to put together, and he's struggling to interact with everybody else because he doesn't know what's real and what's not.
Right, and he has a team that are also enhanced. They have some enhanced abilities, and the enhanced abilities that Vin Diesel has is he has this technology within his bloodstream that rebuilds him. So no matter how he could be shot a dozen times, and it continues to rebuild him. Now, eventually, he has to be rebooted. Is probably the best way to describe it. In order for the nano blood technology to bring him back. And this was a movie that you and I both kind of went in with not huge expectations one way or the other, but I found it highly entertaining.
Yeah.
I found the special effects worked really well within this particular environment. Very stylized. And stylized in a way that really did make you feel, okay, this was a comic book.
Yeah.
And it was like watching kind of the comic book and animation come to life within live action. Vin Diesel, perfectly cast for something like this. I thought Guy Pearce, who was also in Memento, I thought he did a fine job, but he was this guy that was very much like his role that we saw in Iron Man 3.
The extremist virus, this thing that could kind of heal people with disabilities and give them super abilities. This very much felt like a riff off of that. And of course, this is based on a comic book as well, based on the Valiant comics, Bloodshot. But that similarity was a bit too easy to see if you're familiar with Iron Man 3.
Right.
I don't think it was intentional, but that is one thing that caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, because he really did feel like it was the very same character in a very similar situation, but other than that, I did find it highly engaging.
Yeah.
A lot of action. It was entertaining. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm glad I went to see this movie. But the Guy Pearce thing was the one thing that kind of drew me back just a little bit. But hour and 49 minutes long. I thought the pacing worked really well.
Yeah, when you look at the action sequences, they were able to make use of different situations and different environments, and in a really creative fashion. There's one scene takes place in a tunnel, and there's like a flower truck that explodes and overturns, and you have flour all in the air. It looks like just a snowfall or something, and you have this like flashing red light and the flares and stuff, and just really interesting visual environment to take part in.
Yeah, the stunt choreography and the special effects in this, truly solid.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the action sequences. There were several action sequences, and they didn't all include Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
They included others, and there was a female lead in this as well that you may have seen in other films like Baby Driver or the TV series From Dusk Until Dawn. And she had a great action sequence. Her character, she was a former like Olympic kind of swimmer who was also in the military, and she had an accident, and so she has extended breathing capacity now, so she can pretty much breathe underwater, and she's pretty impressive with some martial arts feats as well. But highly recommend watching it if you're just looking for something to enjoy and get away from. It's not a perfect film by any means. It's a good film, not a great film. What's your rating for this?
I'm right about a B- for it.
Yeah.
It's you take it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's a decent mid-March action film. It's not the best choreographed action you'll ever see. It's not like John Wick, where the editing and stunt work is top notch, but it's fun enough, and it'll give you what you're hoping for.
Yeah, there were parts of it, and we talked about this, that reminded me of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Some of the action, and even if you look at Doc Ock, there was a particular character in this movie that had some incredible similarities to Doc Ock, especially toward the end of the film. But I'm right there with you, a B-. It's a decent film for this time of year and a decent action film. Awesome. Well, let's talk about this film that did get delayed, but not because of the coronavirus. The movie is called The Hunt. Am I right? It is The Hunt. Normally I get A and The mixed up with my articles there, but this is called The Hunt. This was delayed several months ago, and now it's finally making the light of day with an Oscar winner, Hilary Swank, starring in this.
Yeah, so it was delayed for many reasons, but part of the reason was it took place around the time of several mass shootings in the United States, and it's a very violent film, highly controversial, political and social satire, and I can see why they pushed it back. It was originally slated for a September release, but here it is in March. And when you think about it, it is a riff on The Most Dangerous Game, the short story, where in this case it's adapted to the 21st century, and a group of elites kind of capture and set this group of middle class, lower class, set them loose in basically this massive estate, and they hunt them down. Very gruesome, very brutal, but it is satire, and you take it for what it is. It takes shots at the entire range of the political spectrum, as the people that are the hunters and the hunted are completely separate ends of the social and political spectrum.
Okay.
But it portrays them both in just as silly a fashion, and you don't really know who you're supposed to be rooting for.
Okay.
But you know everybody is just you know that everybody's part of the problem that we have in the United States today.
So would you say that this is kind of an equal opportunity destroyer as far as the way it looks at politics and the political spectrum and the social spectrum?
Yeah, most certainly.
Okay.
Basically, at the core of it, it's a commentary on how social media, how the internet has influenced the way people react to certain things. People don't know the true reality of a situation, but they jump right on in anyway and give their opinion, give their voice on the matter, which usually leads to a bigger firestorm and just a bigger avalanche of things that you wouldn't have wanted at the beginning of it. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So what is your rating for this?
A B- as well for this. Some of the action is a little bit too gory. It was, of course, intentionally so.
Yeah.
It's meant to be cartoonish, meant to be parody, but that kind of bothered me, just how much they leaned into it a little bit.
Okay.
And then there is some stuff. It's of course, as a parody, as a satire.
Yeah.
There are some things that are going to be offensive, but I think you just kind of take that for what it is, and you understand the intent of it. But yeah, I'd give it a solid B-.
Okay, so if you know you're going into this, you're going to probably be offended one way or the other.
Right.
Then that's what this kind of movie is and what it is about. Okay, The Hunt in theaters now. We're going to take a quick intermission. Greg, you still back there on the Tim Cam? Still back there? Yeah. Yeah, Lane's still back there hanging out with Elvis Nomesley. Glad to see he's still there as well. Appreciate you hanging out with us. So we are going to talk movies, and we're going to continue celebrating Women's History Month right here on Meet Me at the Movies. After the break, we're going to have Thomas review the Hillary documentary that is on Hulu, and we're also going to look at the women of drama. We're going to talk about some of our favorite women of drama who are still acting today. All that, and we'll see if there's more right after this quick intermission.
They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Welcome back to Meet Me in the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here hanging out with Thomas Manning over here beside me to my right, and we've got Greg Tillman back there on the Tim Cam with Lane, the intern. Good to see you guys. Greg's still excited as always. Thomas, one of the things you wanted to mention about the last film, The Hunt, that we did not get a chance to talk to you. There was an action star, female action lead that you really liked.
Oh yeah, Betty Gilpin is the name of the actress, and she definitely gave me some Uma Thurman from Kill Bill vibes.
Wow. Okay.
And she's cold, she's calculating, she's relentless. And her performance is
kind of like your mom.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Wow, pulling out some of your mama jokes here. Okay, wow. Anyway, yeah. So if you see this movie for anything, see it for Betty Gilpin's performance.
Yeah.
She's I can't wait to see where her career takes her from here on out.
Okay, well, very cool. Well, last week in Women's History Month, we did talk about female action leads, and we are going to talk about female drama leads in just a little bit, but there's a new documentary on Hulu called Hillary. It's actually a documentary series about Hillary Clinton. So let me get your thoughts on this, Thomas. You got a chance to check these out.
Yeah, so it's a 4-part docuseries, an hour long each, so it's a little over 4 hours total, and it examines the story of Hillary Clinton. It examines many different facets of her life and her political career. It's definitely not the most objective thing you'll find. It's definitely from her point of view.
Okay.
So depending on where you lean politically, you might not appreciate this as much as others, but you can definitely appreciate the filmmaking passion that went into it.
Okay.
The editing is phenomenal, just how incredibly comprehensive it is from a storytelling perspective. It takes a look back at her early student career, her college career, and how she built her way and climbed the ladder to where she is today as one of the most recognizable political figures of the past 20 years, really. And it does kind of take a look at some of the controversies of her political career and kind of gives her take on that, which of course is not objective once again, but it doesn't shy away from examining those from a certain perspective.
Okay.
And just the amount of interviews that they were able to bring in from political opponents, political allies, from campaign managers. It's really impressive what they were able to bring together. It's directed by Nanette Burstein.
Okay.
And if you want just really solid documentary filmmaking, I recommend it.
Okay.
But depending on where you may fall politically, then you might have a different reaction to it.
Right. So if you're going to grade this just from a filmmaking standpoint, where would that stand?
I'm going to give it a solid B+.
Okay, solid B+.
Yeah.
Yeah, and political documentaries are difficult to do with balance. Many times filmmakers who are drawn into political documentaries to create them have some type of bias one way or the other, so that it's that will typically shine through. I mean, Michael Moore is a great example. I mean, you pretty much know where he's coming from with his documentaries. There is a bias and a purpose for the story he's wanting to share and how he's wanting to share it. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but it's just understanding that when you're going into these allows you to evaluate and appreciate them for what they are and maybe for what they're not. So awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate your thoughts on the Hulu series that is available on Hulu. It is a limited documentary series with 4 parts, about 4 hours in length for all of those. Thanks, Thomas. Well, let's continue to celebrate Women's History Month right here for the last part of the show. And we're going to celebrate the women of drama. and we're going to look at actresses who are still active. So these are still active duty. We're not looking at the women from the past who are some of the really the hallmarks, the legends of Hollywood, because when Thomas and I talked about this, we said that we could do just a segment just on that. So these are all still in active duty, and I'll let you start out, Thomas. Give me one on your list.
I think Margot Robbie is one you have to look at who's really burst onto the scene in the past decade. I think The Wolf of Wall Street was probably her breakout role. She was only 22 years old at that point, and now we are, 8 years later, and she's been nominated for multiple Oscars, nominated for Best Lead Actress in I, Tonya, and then last year nominated Best Supporting Actress for Bombshell. Of course, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, her portrayal of Sharon Tate, which is absolutely lovely, and she can be an action star, a comedic star, like with Harley Quinn and
Absolutely.
Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. Just incredibly versatile actress, and can't wait to see how she builds upon these foundations she set.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. She is quite impressive. I'm going on the kind of other end of the spectrum, even though I completely agree with you on that. Meryl Streep, you can't talk about women of drama without talking about the legend that is Meryl Streep. 21 Oscar nominations for acting, and that includes both lead acting and supporting acting. And I just continue to be drawn to what she does. And she can do comedy as well, but when you look at her drama, I think it is a testament to what others stand up for and look for. One of my favorite roles for her was The Iron Lady just a few years ago. So Meryl Streep is one that's on my list.
Yeah, I think my mom and my sister will be proud of this one, but I've got to mention Sandra Bullock from early 90s. I think Speed was probably one of her earlier roles.
It was a breakout
along with
role.
Keanu Reeves. She was kind of an action dramatic star in that, and she's continued to build and build. Gravity is another fantastic performance from her. You have The Blind Side, which, kind of mediocre film depending on who you ask. I quite enjoyed it, but it was nominated for Best Picture, I believe.
She got an Oscar out of that.
And she did.
Yeah.
Even comedy like The Proposal, I guess we're talking about drama, but
right.
just
But she's versatile as well.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Cate Blanchett is on my list as well. I really love what she just continues to do. She's had 7 Oscar nominations for acting over the course of her career, and she's the only person who has been nominated twice for doing the same role. She was nominated, there were 2 films she did as Queen Elizabeth, as one of the Queen Elizabeths, and she was nominated for both of those, and so she's quite incredible. Blue Jasmine is one that if you haven't seen, it's a Woody Allen film, but her role in that is pretty dang spectacular, so Cate Blanchett is on my list.
I'm going to mention Emma Stone, who has early Disney Channel days, building upon that to where she is now as one of the finest actresses of the last decade. Won an Oscar for La La Land. She was nominated for The Favorite, and she was in Birdman as well. And if you ask any young cinephile today, there's a good chance that their favorite actress is Emma Stone, just because they've seen her kind of grow and develop before their eyes. So.
Yeah, she's phenomenal, and having the red hair doesn't hurt.
Right.
Doesn't hurt either. I'm going to go with an actress that's relatively. She's been around for a little while, but she's starting to make a name for herself. Cynthia Erivo. We got a chance to see her at the Critics' Choice Awards, and she does stage, she does music, she does comedy, she does action. She can do it all, and she's a singer. She is one of these multi-talented and multifaceted acting talents that just continues to blow me away. Last year she was nominated for the film Harriet. Twice she was nominated for Best Song and nominated for Best Actress. And then you go back a few years ago, you and I first really caught on to her for Bad Times at the El Royale. Her performance in that was just incredible. And also, if you haven't seen HBO's The Outsider, she is unbelievable in that TV series. So she's on my list, Cynthia Erivo.
What do they call an EGOT? An Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony?
Yes.
I believe she's been nominated for all 4.
Yeah, I think you're right.
She is definitely an incredibly versatile talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure. So going along in the same direction, Lupita Nyong'o, pretty young actress, and she won an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave. We've seen her we saw her in Us last year. I think she should have been nominated for Us for a horror role. She was playing basically multiple roles, multiple personalities in that one role. She was fantastic in that. And every single movie she's in, she absolutely steals the show. And I wish we'd gotten to see more of her in Star Wars. She played basically a motion capture character. I wish we'd maybe been able to see her, physically there. But still, just whenever Lupita's in a project, she's going to give it her all.
Yeah, I loved her in Us. You and I, neither one of us were really big fans of that movie.
Yeah.
We didn't hate it, we didn't love it, but you couldn't walk away and not remember what she did in that particular movie. And if you do remember the Critics' Choice Awards, I was her bodyguard. And if you look up Getty's Images, Lupita Nyong'o and Noel Manning, you might even find a picture of me hanging out as her bodyguard. Jennifer Lawrence, last week we talked about her in the action category, but I think when you look at her dramatic performances, pretty incredible as well. She has many nominations, 4 Oscar nominations. She's pretty young talent. Silver Linings Playbook, highly recommend that, and also Winter's Bone. Check those out as well. But Jennifer Lawrence also on my list of celebrating the women of drama.
Brie Larson is one on my list for sure. Building upon a kind of childhood career, teenage career, up until her Oscar win in 2015 for Room, where she acted alongside Jacob Tremblay. And that was just a very heartbreaking performance, but you can tell she was fully 100% committed, and that's what resulted as an Oscar for her. She is another one that can do a wide range of roles. Last year she was in Just Mercy alongside Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan, a courtroom kind of civil rights drama, and really moving performance in that. And we've seen her as an action star, Captain Marvel, in Free Fire. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, pretty incredible
Ben
action
Wheatley
film.
film. Yeah, so another one that I'd love to see kind of progress.
I'm just going to list the others. I'm not going to go into detail, but Frances McDormand's on my list. Viola Davis, Helen Mirren, Judi Dench, Glenn Close, 7 Oscar nominations, and Nicole Kidman as well with 4 Oscar nominations. Others you want to make sure you mention?
Oh yeah, Laura Dern for sure, Amy Adams, Charlize Theron, as well as, and that's my list, yeah.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks for joining us right here for Meet Me at the Movies. We tried to cover a lot today, and I wish we'd had more time to focus on those women of drama. I'm sure that Greg, since he's doing the editing, is pretty happy we didn't. He's already kind of calculating how much time it's going to take to put this thing together. But I do want to leave you with a quote of the week, and this quote of the week, actually, I'm cheating. This comes from a TV series called Justified, but I just loved it. This comes from Boyd Crowder. Boyd Crowder says, if you really want to survive in this business, you've got to know your ABCs. You got to always be cool. So until next time, for Thomas Manning, for Greg Tillman, and for the intern back there, laying back on the Tim Cam, we appreciate you. Email us info@c19.tv if you have questions, comments, or just want to ask us what we can do better, or tell us what we can do better. Until next time, that's a wrap.